Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Sunday Morning Manager. I'm Heffiewiggle.
And I'm Sev.
And let's get right to it. So, Sev, we're talking about Ron Wilson. It's his final year of his contract. Does he get renewed?
That's a good one. Wow. It's such a tricky question because Toronto could make the postseason this year, and Ron Wilson could potentially still lose his job. This is a very, very complicated issue, actually, and it's come up recently because, oddly enough, of things other teams are doing, namely firing their coaches. Ron Wilson has been able to do a pretty good job over previous years of cobbling together a patchwork team and making some semblance of a season out of it. This year, he's got them playing exceptionally well. They could do quite a bit better on the penalty kill, in my opinion, but the power play is up over 20%. I believe they are third in goals scored on the power play in the NHL this season. They're second in goals for total in the NHL. He's got them playing a heck of a lot better, but with the coach firings that have been going on, in Washington and in Carolina, and with potential more coaching changes happening in Anaheim, and of course the revolving door on Long Island, a name has popped up recently amongst American Hockey League coaches, and that would be Marlies coach Dallas Eakins.
Well, I mean, you know what? Ron Wilson, I think it's been a given, or at least to me, that he keeps his job if he leads the Leafs back to the playoffs for the first time in 7 years now. So, I mean, yes, there's a possibility he could lose his job, but the team is just so much improved. As for Dallas Eakins, because there are a lot of teams looking for a decent coach. Dallas has done a good job with the Marlies. So are you saying you think Dallas Eakins leaves?
It could happen. When you've got a coach who has done such a good job with a lot of young players in the American Hockey League, as Dallas Eakins has done with the Toronto Marlies, other teams start to notice, and we've seen a lot fewer recycled coaches in the National Hockey League this year. General managers are looking towards younger coaches, American Hockey League coaches, even Junior Hockey League coaches, trying to find guys who bring a different philosophy. And with the success Eakins has been having with the Marlies, it can't go unnoticed. The problem is, does Toronto want to give up a good young coach? Even if Wilson makes the playoffs this year, if they lose Dallas Eakins, then what? Because every coach is hired to be fired. Do you risk losing Eakins to keep Wilson, or do you thank Ron for putting a respectable team together, for getting him into the postseason, and then promote Eakins with the idea that he'll be able to push them over to another level?
That's a very good question. You see, well, here's the thing for me. You can't not reward a coach for doing what you gave him an ultimatum to do, which was essentially what not giving Ron Wilson an extension meant. It said, if you don't succeed, you're gone. Now that he's succeeding, it would be in bad faith for us to fire him. But with Dallas Eakins, he has been doing a good job as well, so I don't know. Maybe at the end of the season we promote him to, if we still have him, we promote him to assistant head coach with the Leafs. It's something to think about. But as for now, I think Eakins has a certain level of loyalty to the Leafs. I think he's going to make it back to the NHL someday. I don't know if that year's now.
All right, moving on. Speaking of the Marlies, which currently make up about a quarter of Toronto's roster right now. So, what's going to happen when the Leafs start getting healthy? Because, let's run down the list here. Colburn, Fratton, Ollie. These guys have been playing outstanding for the Leafs since being called up. What's going to happen when the guys they've been called to replace start getting healthy?
Well, that's one of the strengths of Toronto and one of their biggest problems because depth is great. You want to have guys who you can call up to replace your starters. But when your depth is playing better than your starters, what do? Because you've got guys now like Colby Armstrong, Mike Komisarek, Mike Brown. All those guys who are now missing, several games with injuries, and they haven't been scoring like the new guys have. So, do you have multi-millionaires playing in the AHL? I don't know. The thing is, I think what Burke's trying to do here is build a meritocracy. So if we want to truly have that in Toronto, we keep the young guys up and have the old guys play their way back onto the roster.
No, that's true. The only problem, of course, is that the old guys don't have two-way contracts, and the young guys do. And yes. As much as it pains you to see it, with guys like Fratton and Colburn, of course, playing so well, having them sent back down to the Marlies is a bit of a tough pill to swallow. But you can't have guys occupying the press box simply because they were injured for a stretch. You have to give the veterans their due. These guys made it to the National Hockey League first, so they're owed that. And as for the younger guys, you also have to look at it in terms of the minutes. These guys have been called up and they've been playing outstanding, but a lot of them have been playing what I like to call pillow minutes. They're not always getting thrown out there against the top defensive pairings. They're not out there trying to shut down the top offensive line. They're getting good minutes, but they're getting kind of softer minutes that allow them to play their game, allow them to show what they can do, but without having to be overly demanding on them. And I think that as the season wears on, you might have to start piling on harder minutes on them, which might not necessarily work. I think if they're going to play bigger minutes, doing it in the Marlies for now is probably a better idea than, essentially throwing them to the Wolves.
Yes, definitely. I think that's very true. Another thing that we have to remember is that these guys like Colborne and even Jake Gardner, even though he's earned a spot on the team permanently, they've come from NCAA hockey, AHL hockey. It's not like we can just throw them into the NHL and expect them to stand up to the rigors of a full 82-game NHL season. It's just not going to happen.
Oh, no. We've seen a very small sample size from the likes of Matt Fratton and Joe Colburn. And, of course, you could argue that, wait a minute, we saw only a small sample size from Jake Gardner in the preseason, but Gardner blew us away. I said it. I didn't think he was going to make the team, and he did.
Definitely. We saw how these guys can get hot and cool off. Matt Fratton, for his first 13 games in the NHL, didn't score a point. So, I think definitely, once they start to cool off, which, could be next game, could be 2 weeks from now, the only thing you can do is send them back down to the Marlies. A little development never hurt anyone.
Nope. That is very true. So that wraps up another edition of Sunday Morning Manager. I'm Sev.
I'm Heffiewiggle. Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next time.